get it.
That's Larry Stowe sitting on the right. On the couch were Michael Martin and Steve Waters, and Morales was explaining how the stem cell treatment would go. Hey, Steve, Michael. Mr. Stowe, Mr. Morales, I'm Scott Pelley. I'm with 60 Minutes, and I'd like to ask you a few questions on the record about what you propose. I understand that you have had patients that have stood up and walked away from wheelchairs who have ALS.
There have been patients that have improved to that extent.
You've reversed the condition.
Yes.
You know, Mr. Stowe, the trouble is that you're a con man.
Really?
You're lying about this protocol. You've lied about your association with the University of Texas. You've lied about your work with the FDA. And now you're lying to these gentlemen about what they can expect.
Now, why do you say that?
Nobody at the FDA knows anything about any of this. And the University of Texas is not going to be starting a regenerative medicine clinic with your name on it.
Really?
When we asked Stowe to back up his ALS claims, his story changed. Give me a Stowe Foundation patient who has ALS, who has stood up out of a wheelchair and walked away.
We don't have any ALS patients. We have MS patients.
We are talking about the treatment that you have taken their money for. Is that a treatment that would allow them to stand up out of a wheelchair and walk away?
With an ALS patient? No, we've done it with MS patients.
I don't believe that's what they understood.
Well,
I don't believe that's what you told them.
Then they weren't listening.
Can you give, actually, we were listening very carefully.
Okay, do you have the tape recordings?
I do.
Pull them up.
I have.
Pull them up. I want to hear them.
I can do that.
Okay.
And we did. This was your meeting in Houston.
Right.
Just a few weeks ago.
Well, if I opt for the permanent fix, will it keep me out of a wheelchair?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. No, we've had a number of ALS, patients be able to get out of their wheelchairs.
That's not true, is it?
The Stowe Foundation has not.
You told Steve that you were going to keep him out of a wheelchair. That's not true either, is it?
No, that's very true.
You're going to sit here after seeing that, and you're going to look this man in the face and tell him that he's going to stay out of a wheelchair? I mean, that's cruel.
Really? What is his prognosis if he doesn't do this?
His prognosis is the same either way.
No, it's not.
Mr. Stowe, you told these men in Houston that a cure was, in your memorable phrase, 100% possible.
Possible. Is that a guarantee?
The folks at home are wondering, what goes through your mind when one of these men pushes a suitcase full of cash across the table to you? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that they came to the right place if they want any hope at all.
So is there a permanent fix for the stem cells?
Oh, yes.
Many patients have pinned their hope on Dr. Frank Morales and his improvised stem cell procedures. Recently, he injected stem cells into the spine of a 7-year-old American boy in an attempt to treat the boy's autism, a procedure with no basis in medical science. We found Morales' training is dubious. This is the certificate he presented to a Monterey hospital showing he completed his training at Texas Tech University. But in the interview, he switched schools. Have you ever been licensed to practice medicine in the United States?
I have, and I worked under University of Texas, where I was at in El Paso, and came to Mexico after that.
The University of Texas El Paso has no medical school and no record of Morales as a student. But you have a license, or had a license to practice in the state of Texas.
It was an institutional license at the University of Texas, El Paso, UTEC. So you can go there and you'll find it. I mean, that's simple. That just, if you did your homework, that's lousiness. I mean, on your behalf, sorry to say.
Not only does he have no credentials from the University of Texas, we found that his Texas Tech credentials are fraudulent. A Texas Tech lawyer told us Where it was obtained or manufactured, I couldn't say, but it was not issued by Texas Tech. Several minutes into the interview, we watched the Stowe-Morales relationship dissolve. Morales walked out, then came back to disavow Stowe.
Scott. Yeah, I think that just in the sense of using, using him to try to bring me down I think is inappropriate. I mean, sit down and talk to me about it. Well.
Legal experts tell us that both Stowe and Morales have broken U.S. law, committed fraud by making a false claim. It doesn't matter that the procedure is done in another country. We wondered why the FDA is not acting against the many stem cell con artists whose websites are up for anyone to see. But the FDA Commissioner, Margaret Hamburg, declined to talk with us on camera about any aspect of stem cell quackery. Many experts believe that the FDA is outmatched.
Patients need to beware.
Larry Goldstein, a prominent stem cell biologist, and researcher Doug Sipp are with the International Society for Stem Cell Research, an organization of the world's leading stem cell scientists. Sipp is tracking bogus stem cell clinics all around the world. How have these operations grown, say, in the last 5 years or so?
I would say the growth has been explosive. I've been tracking it kind of closely for the past 3 years, and I've been able to come up with more than 200 clinics that are offering some version of stem cells for some type of medical condition for which there's no really good evidence that the stem cells would be either safe or effective.
Well, are all of these clinics frauds?
On one end of the spectrum, you have people who are doing essentially badly designed, uncontrolled human medical experiments for profit. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you just have thieves who are preying on the sick and their families.
Now, an ALS patient might say to you, how could I possibly be worse? This is the question you get sometimes. How could I possibly be worse?
I'm going to die.
I'm going to die.
Why not give it a try?
2 or 3 years, why not give it a try? Well, what if, as a result of this treatment, you ended up in excruciating pain? What if you managed to bankrupt your family through the use of one of these expensive, unauthorized treatments so that they can't care for you properly as you decline? There are things that are worse than your current situation, I think.
The experts in stem cell research believe these procedures are at best ineffective and potentially dangerous. A study by UCLA found patients at a Chinese clinic often developed spinal meningitis. But there's rarely any mention of risk on the websites that offer false hope for dozens of afflictions, ranging from Down syndrome to cancer.
One of the different things now is that the power of the internet now gives this tremendous global reach to people who in the past would be kind of the local quack.
So instead of the snake oil salesman standing in the back of a pickup truck,
Right.
he can now reach every ALS patient on Earth.
And say, come to me and I'll help you out in Mexico or in Russia or in Thailand.
What we see here essentially is Stowe on an industrial scale.
Stowe on steroids.
Yeah, you could say that.